Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Karnal Singh Sani, working as an assistant professor in Aeronautical Engineering Department, PITDS at Parul University. Today we are presenting a webinar titled as How to Make Yourself More Employable in the Field of Aerospace Engineering. I'm Professor Dhruvin Shah, Assistant Professor of Aeronautical Engineering Department from SVIT Vasar. Professor Dhruvin Shah sir has 9 years of teaching experience and has published more than 11 research papers in various national and international journals and conference proceedings. He has guided many students for their UG research projects. He has organized one national conference and 3 HTTP programs. He has delivered more than 3 expert lectures at various institutes. He has taught many subjects such as fluid mechanics, fundamentals of aeronautical engineering, thermodynamics, computational fluid dynamics, flight mechanics, theory of vibration, space dynamics, and others. So now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to Professor Dhruvin Shah sir, our presenter today, with great knowledge and expertise on the topic of how to make yourself more employable in the field of aerospace engineering. So over to you, Professor Dhruvin Shah sir.
Thank you, Karnesh sir, for such a nice introduction. Good morning, all young, dynamic, and future aeronautical engineers of India. I welcome you all in today's webinar on how to make yourself employable in the field of aerospace engineering. So Professor Dhruvin Shah, as already introduced by Colonel sir, working as an assistant professor in the Department of Aeronautical Engineering, SVIT Vasar. Although we are including the aerospace engineering domain, but I would be more specific to aeronautical engineering because you all are going to be aeronautical engineers very soon. So without wasting time, let us start our today's webinar. So let me be very clear before I start this webinar. I am not someone who has very vast experience in hiring people or hiring aeronautical engineers, but being associated with this field and by experience, I'm going to share my knowledge of how to make yourself slightly ahead, a step forward than others by so that you can be more employable, you can be more preferred choice when it comes to the employment with skills, some skills that I'm going to explain today. So let us see the outline of this today's webinar. So I'm going to have slightly some facts and figures of some engineering scenario in the country and the globe right now. I will address the problem and the solution for this. Who can be the perfect employee, or we can say that what actually the industry or a company considers as the perfect choice as an employee, right? So what should be the qualities which are required? Then we will go into the more detail in both your soft skills as well as some technical skills as well. Then I have included some of the aerospace job engineering opportunities and what are the skills which are required for that. And then I will also slightly explain about the how to build your resume. Again, I am not someone who has expertise in building resume, but how to make it more effective. That is what I am going to explain, and then I will be open for question and answer. So let us start with the webinar. So my first question is, do you know how many engineer graduates every year, pass outs basically in India? So just for your reference, I have certain number. You can see that there are more than 10 lakhs engineer graduates in India. I'm only talking about India here, right? So there are more than 10 lakhs graduates. Some it may be around 15 lakhs as well by today, right? So another question is that is there actually a shortage of engineers in the world, around the world, or around the country? Is there a shortage? We know that with so many engineers being graduated every year only from India, right? Still, is there can be a shortage of engineers in India, so or world? So the answer is yes. There is a shortage of engineers that industry is facing right now. Then these both are basically the contradictory scenario, that by looking at the numbers we see that there is a huge number who graduates every year from only India. And if you look at the requirement of engineers around the globe and around the India, there is a shortage. Then why it is? So the question is why. So the answer is, so basically the problem is that there is an unemployment, right? So you all are basically reading in newspaper that so many engineers are unemployed, or say they are applying for some non-technical clerical job across the globe, right? So this is the current scenario basically. Then what is basically the wrong with specifically our country's engineering or engineering scenario, right? So the answer is skill. We are, although there is a huge number which is passing every year, and there is still a shortage that industry faces every year. And this is because we are producing engineers, we are manufacturing engineers, I can say, because there are so many engineering colleges and the seats which are available around the country, right? So but the problem is that we are lacking in skill, right? We have engineers, but we don't have skilled engineers. And that is why the industry is still facing a shortage of engineer. So my answer to the solution or the problem is basically skill. So how we can, or say, forget about the others, but if you want to become an engineer which is employable in the market, then you have to be a skilled engineer, right? And there was a survey by some US agency or some other agency which was saying that there is only 3 to 7% engineers which are employable in the industry. So let's say if there are 100 engineers which are graduating and successfully graduating, right, with the degree, then there, out of those 100, there are only 3 to 7 engineers which can be employable. It means that 93% or 93 to 97% engineers are unskilled engineers. They, although they are owning the engineering degree, but they do not have the skills, at least minimum skills, which are required in the industry, right? So my advice is, let us make yourself a skilled engineer, not only an engineer, right? So what is actually the skills? So uh, there is no specific definition of these skills, but what I'm trying to cover, which trying to cover under this word skill, is S for soft skills and hard skills. So whatever soft skills which are required as a personal, what are the soft skills which are required as an aeronautical engineer, or whatever engineering degree you are pursuing, and there must be some hard skills as well in your particular branch of engineering. So S for soft skills and hard skills. K is for knowledge, right? So you must have a knowledge of subjects which you studied. Only having a degree certificate is enough. You should have the knowledge of those subjects which you have studied, those domains which are there in your engineering branch. I is for intelligence, L is for lifelong learning. So both intelligence and lifelong learning is very important, right? So you have to be intelligent because you are special, because you are pursuing the engineering degree. You are the future of the country, you are the future of the world, because and there is there is a common saying that without engineers this world will not survive, right? So there is a big responsibility on you in taking this country forward, taking this world forward with the revolution in engineering, and that can only be possible when you have intelligent individuals, intelligent engineers, right? So that is intelligence. The fourth one is very important, which we are lacking in most of the students or most of the pursuing engineering graduates, right? That is lifelong learning. Students are only learning for exam. They are learning only for a short span of time, right? But if you want to become a personal, if you want to become a professional, if you want to become an engineer which is easily employable means people are ready to take you as an employee, then you have to have this quality, that is lifelong learning. And this lifelong learning should be included in your routine from very first day of your engineering. If you have not started yet, just understand what is lifelong learning. Lifelong learning makes an engineer more employable. And lifelong learning means that you, whatever you are learning, whatever subjects that you are studying, whatever knowledge you are gaining, whatever skills you are developing, that should be remembered, that should be developed, that should be molded for the long life, not for only for the exam. You are getting the marks and you are done, right? Because there is no meaning if you cannot show your knowledge, if you cannot show your skills on the right day, on the right time. So lifelong learning is the very important factor that is missing from most of the engineering students right now. And the fourth one that is also very important nowadays, that is communication skill, that is language communication, whether it is in the verbal form, whether it is in the written form, whether it is in the a technical form, or whether it is in terms of a presentation. So because every individual has to talk in the industry, every individual has to deal with the customers, every individual has to deal with the team, every individual has to convince the management about what they are trying to do, what they are basically thinking about the company, about the projects. So this language is very important, that is communication skill is very important. So if you as a student, if you understand the importance of these five words which I have explained, not only the importance, but you have to include that in your routine, right? In your talking with your friends, in your classes, in your laboratories, right? So if you include all these five factors, then it is definitely make you a good choice for the employers when it comes to the employment. Now the question is that what an employer expects from an employee. So let us understand that you are all are, I'm assuming that you all are diploma students here, and or maybe the BE BTech students, right? And whenever you will graduate from your university, right, you will be fresher. You will not have any experience of industry when you are going for your first job. And I'm only trying to I'm only focusing this presentation on fresh graduates, right? Because it is always very tough to get the first job. right? Then it becomes very easy to get the second job and the another jobs in future, right? So how, when it comes by with no experience, right, how you can market yourself, how you can convince an employer, right? So for that it is very important to understand that what an employer expects from the fresh graduate or fresh engineering graduate, right? So there is, I'm not going into any specific details which are published in the literature about a perfect employee definition. I am simply convincing myself that a perfect employee is the one who can communicate well, right? Who can represent, who can show what he knows about the subjects, what he knows about the product, right? And it can present his or her idea uh, to someone in front of, I mean, in front of the others, right? So if being a fresher, if you want to get employed, if you want to get selected, what you need is you must have a developed personality, right? And the second one is, as we all are, I mean, as you are basically in a technical branch, right, you must have the technical skills as well, right? So remember that this is uh, uh, none of this factor out of both these, that is personality development and the technical skill, a single factor is not enough. If you are very good in communication, right, and if you do not know the technical knowledge or technical skills, if you do not if you have not acquired any technical skills, then it is of no use for an employer, right? Let us take the another scenario. You don't know how to communicate, but you have a very good technical skills, right? But you cannot, because of lacking in the communication skill, because of the lacking in the personality, right, you are not representing yourself 100%, right? Because you know what are the technical skills you have acquired, but that you have to convince to the employer as well. And the mode of communication will only be possible if you are a developed personality. So both of these are equally important, which is what I believe, right? An employer will look for a perfect package. They will not, employer will not expect that you are a person with all technical skills at a time. They will not explain that you are a complete package, because because they have been hiring freshers for very long time, and they know what are the problems and what are the challenges that a fresh graduate basically feels, right? So and they know the problem, they know how to mold themselves in future by providing certain training and the certain with the help of a certain exercise. So at initial level they are basically seeing a developed personality, a matured personality, with of course some basic and fundamental technical skills and technical knowledge about the domain, whatever engineering branch you are pursuing, whatever field in which you are applying for, right? And that is what makes a perfect choice or easily employable fresher to the employer, right? So both of this is very important. So you have to equally work on your both sides of this, that is technical and personality, right? So you have, it is none of this should be ignored, right, during this. And remember, you have a very short time as a student, right? So if you are pursuing diploma, you only have 3 years. If you are pursuing btech, you only have 4 years to develop your personality, to develop your technical skills. So it is very short time. Looking at the two or three mid-sem exam in a year or in a semester, then you have two external exams, you have the practical sessions, you have the vacations, right? So by looking at the structure that we are studying in, the education system that we are studying in, as an engineer you have a very short time to work on yourself, right? To work on the qualities, work on the technical skills that will make you more employable, right? So because in when it comes to the employment, when it comes to the become an entrepreneur, right, the bookish knowledge will not be enough, the mark sheets will not be enough, right? So you have a very short time in your during your education to work on your personality development as well, which will make you a perfect choice for highlights what does personality development mean, and what technical skills that you should have as an aeronautical engineer. So when I say personality development, there can be so many things that we can include. The first one is the communication, which I have already explained. That as an engineer, you need to communicate to the customers. You need to deal with the managers. You need to deal with the teams. You need to deal with the management of the company, right? So either in terms of a written communication or verbal communication, right? So you should be equally good in both the modes of communication, that is verbal communication as well as written communication. In terms of, there will be some specific jobs, there will be some job responsibilities which basically ask you to write the technical articles, technical like if you are should you should write you will have to write the manuals as well. There's some standard operating procedures. So in that particular job responsibility, the communication or the writing skills that you require, that is a technical writing, right? So along with the verbal and the verbal communication and your how to how to do the technical writing, and this technical writing can be basically learned by writing research paper, writing research article, right? So whatever conclusions that you are writing in your lab, right? So that will at the end of the each practical you have to write the conclusion, right? So do not try to copy paste those conclusions from your technical technical or say try to write those conclusions and the procedure, right, of the practical in your own words, right? So this will also develop a skill of technical writing, which will be also very helpful in your professional life as an engineer. Second is problem solving. So because we are the problem solvers for the whole universe, right? Because we are engineers, and we have to I mean we are made for solving the problems of the whole universe. So an employer always looks for this quality, that they will represent a simple problem in the interview, and they will just check whether you have an approach of problem solving or not. So whenever a problem is represented in terms of in front of you, right, just try to look at from the solution from a point of view, and just try to see that how you can, I mean whether you are whether you are looking that particular statement as a problem, and you are able to solve it. Doesn't matter that solution must be the correct one or the final one or the wrong one, right? Just you should have this quality of analyzing the things as a problem, and you should be a very conquer, and you should be very able to zeal of having zeal of solving the problem. So this problem solving quality is also something that every engineer should look for. The third one is organization. Organization means you have to be a organized personality. So whether it is a data management in your laptop, whether it is a data management in the company, whether there are certain files in on your table, whether it is your personal things, right? So everything should be organized, right? So, and this you can learn in your day-to-day life, whether you are in your class, whether you are at your home, whether you are in your hostel, right? Keep things organized, right? Try to learn that, because in future the data management is going to be something that will be very important in coming days, because with such a large or a huge digitalization in our day-to-day life, we keep everything in soft copies, right? So whether it is some files, whether it is some folders, whether it is the photos, whether it is media files, everything we are putting in a digitalized form in our laptop, in our on our drive, right? And at a certain time when you require them, you are still, it is there in your laptop somewhere, you are not able to find it, because you have not organized your files, you are not organized your folders, right? So this data management, with so much data available in the soft copy, this data management in future is going to be a very tough task, right? So keep things organized so that you can find out the correct paper, correct file at the right time, right? And that is also very important in the industry, in the professional world. The fourth one is leadership, right? So leadership will give you an edge in your personality, right? So everyone cannot be a leader, right? Everyone cannot be a good leader. You must have certain quality of leadership, right? So this you can develop in your day-to-day life, in your events, right? So participate in your event, lead those event, take the challenges, right? Accept those challenging. Do not hesitate to take the roles of leadership in your early days, right? If you look at any good leaders history, they started taking challenges in the student life only, right? So whether it is our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, whether it is Virat Kohli, whether it is some General Bipin Rawat, whatever. If you look at any good leader, right? They started taking those small leadership roles in their student life. And these some technical events, cultural events, workshops, seminars, these are the some family functions. These are the small opportunities of taking the leadership roles. And if you can do it successfully, it will boost your confidence as a leader, and in future you will not hesitate to show your leadership skills. And leadership skills are very important and in demand quality that employer always looks in employer, or in the people who are applying for a particular job, because everyone cannot be a leader, right? So if you can be a leader, this is an extra edge that you are having in your personality. The next one is adaptability. You should be adaptive to, you should be flexible, you should be adaptive to the different locations, different situations, different scenarios, different uh, different tough and good and bad times, right? So you should be adaptable to the situation, you should be adaptable to the people, right? You should be adaptable to the culture, you should be adaptable to the environment, right? So you have to be a flexible one, especially when you are starting your career, right? So that will also something that will be very helpful in your personality development. Next one is creativity. Of course, this is very important. If you are a creative engineer, right, then people will like you, right? Because creativity is something that is required in engineering. So like if you look at simple example between a mechanic and an automobile engineer, what is the difference between a mechanic and an automobile engineer? A mechanic basically solves the problem of existing technology, right? But an automobile engineer develops new technology, and development always comes from the creativity only, right? So as an engineer, you are not sufficient to know what is going on currently in your branch of engineering or in your domain of engineering, but you should be a creative one. You should be thinking out of the box, right? Like how I can make my petrol how I can convert this into an electrical car, as let's say we are revolving from the fossil fuel to the electrical propulsion right now. You have to think that, of course, we can develop new vehicles with the electrical propulsion system, right? But what about the existing? Because still people are buying new vehicles, right? So which are having some petrol or diesel engines. What about those, right? Because it will take very long time to convert all those, or I mean to fully switch to the electric. So is you should think that can I basically convert my existing two wheeler from petrol to the electric, right? So like you have to be a creative thinker, and you have to see that doesn't matter that whether you fail or whether you succeed, doesn't matter whether the idea that you are thinking that is possible or not, right? Practically, but you have to be a creative thinking, because every experiment, like every new research starts from the failure only, right? And it is a good sign that you are failing in your first attempt. You're going to become a great if you are failing in your early days, in your early research, right? So you have to be a creative engineer. uh, the next and the last one is interpersonal skill and emotional intelligence, right? So there will be different there will be ups and downs in your personal life, there will be ups and downs in your professional life. Every day will not be same at your workplace. Every people will not be good good with you, right? So there will be so ups and downs in your personal and professional life during your whole life, right? So you have to be you should have some interpersonal skill and intelligence. Emotional intelligence will basically a quality that makes you survive in all these difficult ups and down moment, right? Because people always take some wrong decisions in either in very good situation or either in the worst situation, right? So you have to be balanced emotionally in your ups and downs of this personal and professional life. Coming to the important part, that is the another part, which is a technical portion, right? So in technical portion, I have listed some basic technical skills as an engineer, or every engineer with. Doesn't matter you are a computer engineer, you are a IT engineer, you are an aeronautical engineer, but there are certain skills which are common, and these are not the only skills which are the I mean every engineer should have. There may be certain other skills as well. I have listed some of important common technical skills that every engineer should have. Doesn't matter in which branch you are pursuing your engineering. So what are those skills? So number one is a basic knowledge of computer or computer science. Second is programming language, that is, it may be C, it may be C++, it may be Java, it may be MATLAB, it may be Fortran, etc. I have listed this MATLAB and Fortran just because it is more important for aeronautical engineering, and I will explain that as well, but we will not go into the detail. But as an engineer, you should know at least one programming language, whether it is a MATLAB, whether it is a C language, whether it is a C++, whether it is Fortran, whether it is Java. At least you should learn one programming language, because every application is a digital nowadays. If you look at every problems are nowadays solved by some computer programs, some softwares nowadays, and all softwares, all these computer programs are basically written in either of this basic programming languages. So it is also it is always advantageous to have to know at least one of this programming language. The third one is, especially for the aeronautical or mechanical point of view, is reading, understanding and interpretation of engineering drawings. Because when you are working is a either in a product development company or either in a solution providing country, so you should, as an engineer, you will always deal with the engineering drawings. There are still drawings are being made on paper as well, or on with the computer, right? So you should always be able to read those engineering drawing, because it has it has a technical terms in that. You should be able to read that, you should be able to interpret that, right? So engineering drawing, engineering graphics which you are studying, that is also very important here. You must have workshop skills, that is some hard skills of carpentry, lathe machine, etc., especially for the mechanical, aerospace, automobile industries, right? You should be you should have some you should be aware with basic manufacturing processes, right? Some material testings as well. So these are the certain basic skill that every engineer basically should have. Especially there are some skills like workshop and manufacturing processes, that is uh, very important for mechanical production or aerospace engineer. Now, something that is very important and for you, because you all are basically the pursuing mostly the aeronautical engineering, if I'm not wrong, right? And that is why I have included these two slides, wherein we will see some only few examples of different job opportunities which are available in the market as a for aeronautical engineers, right? And when you get selected, when you want any job, you should always be aware that what are the skills, which are the skills which are required for a particular role, right? And that then and then only you can decide whether you are going to be fitted in that particular role or not, or do you have a chance for getting this job or not. Because the problem is, as I discussed earlier, that is nothing but only skills that an individual should have. Because there are a lot of engineers, there are a lot of technical graduates, but there is a huge lacking in the skilled engineers, skilled laborers, right? So make yourself, if you want to become, if you want to become an employable engineer, then you should always have a skill, you should always have skills. You have to be a skilled engineer. Without skills, engineering is zero. There are a lot of engineers graduates which I see every day, right? Joining banks, joining financial institutions, starting their own ready-made garment business, right? So what is the reason? Because at some point they basically feel that they cannot be a good engineer, or they are not being employed, right? And the reason only is that without skills, they want everyone to select himself or herself, and that nobody will do that, right? So if you want to become an engineer, if you want to work as an engineer in your future, then you have to be a skilled engineer, right? And now I'm being more specific, you have to be a skilled aeronautical engineer, right? Because I assume that there are all aeronautical engineers here. So let us see that what are the different job job opportunities, some famous or some common job opportunities or some job roles which are available for aeronautical engineers in India or abroad, right? So the first one is, let's say, the design engineer. So there is a vacancy of, let's say, design engineer. Then you should know what will be the skills which are required for design engineer, right? So as I mentioned, that reading and interpretation of engineering drawing, that is very important, because you are going to work as a designer. You are going to work as a designer of a new product or a part of your related engineering branch, part of an aircraft, right? So you should be very when you design that part, right, you should be very clear about drafting. You should be very clear about engineering drawings, that is either it is existing as a product, or either you are getting that from your colleagues, right? So you should be able to read that engineering drawing. You should be able to interpret that engineering drawing. Then, as a design engineer, you should be able to visualize that particular design that you are thinking of, right? So in your back of the mind, you should be visualize that design. Like if you want to design a good aerodynamic wing or good aerodynamic aircraft, right? And when you are applying your knowledge, back of the mind, you should be visualizing that particular design of a aerodynamic surface of a aerodynamic aircraft, right? Whether it is going to be the aerodynamic one or not, right? Taking from the scratch. When you are designing a certain thing, you should be simultaneously, in back of the mind, you should be visualize your design, right? Very important thing that I'm basically trying to convey is, you should be at least aware with the softwares which are currently being used in the different field of the engineering, in the different for the different roles and for the different solution. Because softwares nowadays are very important. And whatever branch you take, there are a lot of softwares which are being used across the globe, across the country, right? And you should be now it has become requirement. In early days, it was not the requirement, it was an extra edge, it was an extra quality, if you know the softwares. But nowadays, without softwares, again, you will not be an employable one. Or if you do not know anything about the software, then it is going to be very tough for you. Because at some point of the time, right, if you are not learning in your engineering days, then you will have to learn after your graduation, right? So it will basically going to consume extra time only, right? But if you are able to learn those skills, if you are able to learn those softwares during your engineering days, it will make you more employable. And you will not have to wait for the opportunity, right? So the next skills that a design engineer should have, that is to know the CAD software. So you must be aware with the AutoCAD, you must be aware with the CATIA software, which are you must be aware with the SolidWorks, right? So these are all some basic CAD softwares which are available in the market, that is computer aided drawings, right? So people, once you have the design on the paper or in the back of the mind, right, with the dimensions, right, you need to visualize that design, you need to create that design in a virtual mode. And that is only possible with the help of a CAD software like CATIA, or maybe the SolidWorks, or maybe the AutoCAD, right? If specifically as an aircraft design engineer, you should be aware with the types of basic aircraft designs, that is starting from the conceptual, preliminary, and detailed design. You should have the material selection idea. You should have the what type of wings you can use. So you must be aware with the fundamentals of aircraft design and its process. Okay. So this is the one job designation and skills required for it, right? Similarly, second is, let's say, the aerodynamics and CFD engineer. Now this is also very important, because you know that you must have heard that there are very rare job opportunities in India for aeronautical engineer. And that is, I believe, that is true as well up to certain extent. Because in the field of aerospace, in the field of aviation, we are still, or aerospace technologies, we are still a developing country. There will be lot of jobs. There are lot of jobs right now, right? So I mean, if you go back to 5 or 10 years back, when I graduated from my aeronautic, I completed my aeronautical engineering. There were very few jobs available in the state, in the country, as for aeronautical engineers. But right now, I mean, it is getting improved, and there are a lot of jobs right now as well. But still, if you want to become a key pioneer, and if you want to become a key player in the field of aerospace engineer, especially, I mean, I'm talking about the country. If India wants to become a key player and a great contributor in the field of aerospace, then we will have to work hard. We will have to create the job opportunities, right? And right now, as I'm saying, that there are, as whatever jobs are available, right? A lot of percentage of jobs basically either going in the field of aerodynamics and the structural analysis job, right? So aerodynamics engineer or CFD engineer, as a you are basically trying to improve the aerodynamic characteristics of the aircraft. You are trying to improving the lift to drag ratio of a aircraft wing, right? So you are basically creating a new aerodynamic designs, or you are basically modifying the existing design to a more aerodynamic surface. You are trying to decrease the drag, you are trying to increase the lift, right? But and so whenever you are applying the concepts of aerodynamics that you have studied, right? So the first thing is that you should know the fundamentals of aerodynamics, right? If you want to become a CFD engineer or a aerodynamics engineer, out of 10 jobs, 4 jobs are available as a CFD engineer right now in India. Okay, and for that you should have a very fundamental and sound knowledge of aerodynamics, concepts of lift and drag, concepts of different types of flow. You should have a very strong background of the fluid dynamics, which is also a part of your aerodynamics only, right? You should This is just a theoretical knowledge I have talked about. But if you will have to work as an aeronautical engineer, if you get selected to work as an aeronautical engineer or a CFD engineer, then aerodynamics industry and CFD industry basically only works on the software, right? So these principles which I have just talked about, you have to apply in terms of the software which are being used for carrying out the aerodynamic analysis or a CFD analysis, right? Because CFD is one of the very important technique which are used by each and every industry nowadays across the world, right? So no, I mean, because experimental carrying out physical experiments for the large aircraft or the large aircraft wing, it will not be possible every time, and even if it is possible, it is very costly, right? So to make it more simpler, to make it more easily, to make it more convenient, CFD technique is used, and your faculties will, of course, will guide you about this, right? But what will be the skills that will be required for this? So first is again a CAD software. So either you should, because when you are carrying out a CFD analysis, when you're carrying out aerodynamic analysis, you have to generate that particular part in a CAD model. You have to generate a CAD model of the either the whole aircraft, right, or the aircraft wing, whatever it is, right? So CAD software, again, CAD softwares like CATIA, SolidWorks, AutoCAD, this is very important. So in your engineering, at the end of engineering, you should know at least one CAD software, because there are a lot of CAD softwares in the market. Again, if you know one CAD software, it will be very easy for you to understand the another software, Okay. Similarly, there is a meshing software. Again, I am not going into the detail because at this point you are not aware with the meshing software, but meshing is again a part to carry out the CFD analysis, right? So you should at least learn one meshing software as well, and the one post processing or analysis softwares like ANSYS or Star CCM or any other Flow 3D, etc. There are again lot of softwares for the CFD analysis which is available in the market, and ANSYS is one of the most commonly used software in the CFD industry in the whole world, right? So it will be very beneficial if you know ANSYS. So there will be you will get job easily if you know the fundamentals of aerodynamics, if you know the fundamentals of CFD, and you have a certain basic idea of about this software, right? So because there are a lot of job opportunities available in India in aerodynamic and CFD field. Similarly, like we talk about the fluid properties in the aerodynamics or the CFD part, similarly you will have the structural properties about the stress, about the strain, about the force, loads, right, etc. So as a structural engineer or the structural analyst, right, again there are a lot of job opportunities right now available in the market. Remember my words. If you look at the 10 jobs, again 4 jobs for aerodynamics or CFD, 4 jobs will be for the structural analyst, and it will be a good career if you select either of this, right, in India. So without going abroad, without pursuing any other extra higher studies abroad, which cost you lakhs of rupees, right, you can pursue your professional career if you are interested either in the aerodynamics or CFD engineer or structural engineers. So what are the skills that are required for the structural analyst or the structural engineer? So you have studied the mechanics of solid, right? So that talks about the basics of the solids, right? Then you should know the CAD software, because in this structural analysis also the softwares are being used. So you should know the CAD software, you should know the meshing software, and you should also know the softwares which are used for the analysis of solids of structure. Earlier in CFD we are talking about about the fluids. Here we are talking about the structure. So the softwares which are used for the structural analysis are again ANSYS, Nastran, Partran, right? So if you know these softwares like Nastran, Partran, ANSYS, which are used for the structural analysis, again it will be very helpful and very beneficial for you to get the job. Then you should then another job opportunities can be electrical or electronics engineer or avionics engineer, where you should know the basics of the electrical and the electronics. You should know the basics of the avionics, which you will be studying in your future semesters. You should have the knowledge about the communication in terms of the aircraft communication, that is related to the aircraft, and also the navigation systems. And for propulsion system, so in as a propulsion engineer, again there are a lot of jobs will available across the world, which are basically trying to improve the efficiency of the existing engines. Your challenge will be to make make the existing engine compact. Your challenges would be to make the existing engine more smaller and more lighter, because extra weight needs extra thrust, right? So an extra thrust, if you want to produce, you will have to burn extra fuel, right? So it is always advantageous to have a compact engine. So right now people are working to make the design more compact and compact, which is very useful, right? So as a propulsion engine evolving around the so you should have the basic knowledge of the different components of the aircraft engine: compressor, turbine, combustion chamber, nozzle, etc., and their working, right? You should have the basic knowledge of the different types of propulsion system, right, and their working, like what is turbojet, turbofan, etc., right? and you can join as a propulsion engineer if you have a sound knowledge of all these parts. Then you have the aircraft maintenance engineer, which is of course it needs a certain it needs certain license, right? Either if we talk about in India, you should have a license certification course from the DGCA, right? You should have the in-depth knowledge of the various parts and the components of the aircraft, its working, its maintenance procedure, its overhauling procedure, the life cycle of each and every component, right? Up to what time, up to what duration it can be used with maintenance, without maintenance, right? So everything, and where, when you have to replace this. So all this basically, of course, being taught in your subjects like aircraft maintenance. You should know the product life cycle. You should know the how to assemble the different parts of the aircraft, how to dismantle the different parts of the aircraft, because when you are going for the servicing of your two-wheeler, you know that the mechanic first will dismantle the certain parts of your two-wheeler and four-wheeler, right? And then at the end, after basically solving the problem and just cleaning and everything, it will again basically assemble those parts. So it is the same with the aircraft, but aircraft is a more complex vehicle, because there will be thousands of different parts of different size for different purposes. So you should always be be ready with the manual which is provided by the manufacturer, right? And you should be able to read those manual. You should be able to know the standard operating procedure for that particular part or the particular uh, component. Okay. Then there is a good saying that you never get a second chance to make a good first impression. This is the very good saying by Will Rogers. The meaning is that the first impression is the last impression. So when it comes to uh, when it comes to the first impression, right? As an when you are applying for a job, right? The first thing that you will it will always starts from the resume, right? Even whenever you talk to someone that I am looking for a job, so he or she will directly say that just email me your resume, right? So this effective resume building exercise is very mandatory, and of course your university must be doing it with the experts. I am not an expert in resume building, but uh, there is always a question. People will tell you that make your resume effective. They will tell you a lot of things in their good language, but my I mean your question will be that, sir or ma'am, I am a fresher, right? How to make effective resume, right? Because I don't have the experience. I don't have the details to include in my resume, because I have just completed my bachelor's, right? So in this slide I am basically giving you some advices for resume building for freshers, right? So number one, you will, of course, there will be some personal details which should be very much easily and clean and neatly mentioned to be mentioned in your resume, including your phone numbers, which should be a reachable one, right? Your email addresses, which you are basically visiting every day and checking every day whether you have received any email or not. The main thing, that is second part after your personal details, will be career goal or some statement about your career, what you want to become, what you are seeing yourself in future, right? So that is a career goal. Remember, if you are writing a career goal, it must be in line with the job you are applying for, right? So let's say if you are applying for the aircraft maintenance engineering job, and if your statement is saying that you want to become you want to you are more interested in the aerodynamics of the aircraft, or you are more interested in the CFD job, right? So both will be contradictory, right? So people will look at this and they will just throw your CV out of the race, right? So your whatever career goal if you are mentioning, right, it depends upon simply your format. But if you are mentioning your career goal, it must be in line with the job you are applying for. If you are applying for the maintenance job, your career goal should also reflect the same fact that you are seeing yourself, or you are more interested in the aircraft maintenance engineering jobs in future, or whatever it is. So it must be matching with your career, I mean, matching with the job that you are applying for. Do not just forward the same CV everywhere. Clear? Just you will it is okay to make 2 or 3 CVs, or it is okay to make some changes in the resume every time before applying to a particular job, because every job will ask different details, right? So you can basically, as a fresher, you can do that, because you have not started your career yet. You don't know the details. You don't know what you can do in the future, right? You just want to start. So for that start, you can apply everywhere, right? And according to the job requirement, you can make slight changes in your CV. So that is a career goal. Second is that it is very difficult to make to include the contents for aeronautical, and I mean especially the fresher engineers going for a job, or building or writing their CV for the first time, right? So because you don't have the much experience, you don't have the much I mean much to write about what you have done, right? So you should at least try to write those good things which you have done, which you have performed, which you have been awarded in your student life, right? So second is highlight your good academic grades. So as a fresher, some employer always look for the academic grades, right? So if you are having good academic grades, you have to highlight your good academic grades, right? So it will create an impact in the on the employer. The third one is you must include your project, because you don't have the experience, you have not worked for the 5 years or the 10 years, you are just a fresher. So you do not have the experience to write. So what you can include is the projects that you have done, right, during your bachelor's, during your diploma, during your masters, right? So mention those projects. If you have undergone some internships, mention those internships as well, with brief details about the title, definition of the problem, where you have done that internship, that is company name, what was the duration of that internship or the project, who were your mentor, who were your guide. Because there may be the case that you have done internship, you have done a project under the good professor or under a good industry personnel, right? So by looking at his or name also creates an impact, right? So you include these details. Then you include the skills that you have acquired. So if you know the CAD software, if you know the programming skills, if you know the meshing software analysis skill, if you know how to operate the lathe machine, right? So if you know the different manufacturing processes, if you have some sheet metal experience, so whatever skills you have acquired, right, just mention those skills, highlight those skills, right? Because as a fresher, you need this. Include your publications, research projects, grants awarded, right? So in your achievements, you can write if you have received any grant from the government, grant from the industry, or grant from certain other institution for your projects, for your internships, or as a scholarship also. So you include those details. Include the details of good workshops. Good workshops means workshops which are arranged at the some IITs level, or with some organized by some industry, right? So include the details of good workshop, seminars, and the conference if you have attended it, right? Not the college level, or it will not make an impact. You can add it, but it will not make an impact. The next one is include your remarkable achievements during your life, whether it is a technical, whether it is a non-technical, whether it is a cultural, whether you have received any scholarship during your graduation, or during your school days, if you have received any gold medals, if you have any achievements in sports at zonal level, at national level, or international level, you must include this. It will also create a different impact, right? you must show your leadership qualities through your achievements. So if you have led the teams in sports or in some cultural events, right, and if you have won some awards or the prize monies, right, that you must reflect those facts. This will basically provide you an extra edge in your resume, and employer can see that you have the leadership skills, right? So that will also be very advantageous. And the very important thing that nowadays is a LinkedIn profile. You all of you must have a professional LinkedIn profile. Remember, LinkedIn is not a social media like Facebook or an Instagram where you can put any pictures, right? It is a professional networking site, right? So you should always prepare a good professional profile on LinkedIn with some good professional profile photo, right? Or it is also, I mean, right now people are looking for a digital resume. Digital resume is, what is digital resume? So in the most basic form, a digital resume is simply a version of your resume that is publicly accessible online. So if I am an employer, if I want to before contacting you, if I want to see that whether this candidate is suitable for me or not, I will visit your LinkedIn page, wherein I will see that what are the skills that you have acquired, what you have whether you have any experience or not, whether you have undergone any projects or research work or not, right? So that is accessible online, so everyone can see, right? And LinkedIn profile is one of the example of the digital resume, and it is very easy also because you can directly send a link. Every job consultant or job consulting agencies, they have nowadays they have an option of adding your digital resume, right? So simply you have to post the link on their you don't need to attach your physical CV, right? You can simply attach the link, and they can visit your digital resume. So that is very important. Create a very meaningful and a great LinkedIn profile, right? Also, what is the advantages, or say, do I need a digital resume? Not necessarily. It is not compulsory, but as we are switching, everyone is switching to a digitalization, right? It is always very useful to have this digital resume, right? And there are some advantages of digital resume because as I said, that LinkedIn is a professional network. You are adding the similar kind of a professional of your field of interest, of the similar branch, similar companies in that particular network, right? So you are creating a professional network. So when you are creating a professional network and you have prepared a good LinkedIn profile or a good digital resume, by default it is accessible to everyone who is there in your network. You don't need to email your CVs. You don't need to send the CVs, right? Where you don't need to ask those people to see their CV. They will automatically see because they are added in your network, right? So we are, by creating a good LinkedIn profile, we are putting ourselves in the market indirectly, right? So if people have gone through your profile, and if they have a specific requirement which is suitable as per your skills and as per your education credentials, they will directly contact you, right? So that is, we are putting ourselves in the market indirectly by creating a good digital resume or a good LinkedIn profile, right? In this digital world, you are showing an employer that you are tech savvy, right? When you are creating a digital resume, right, you are sending a message to the employer that you are a tech savvy person, because you have switched yourself to a digital resume. Although you have a physical resume, but you also have the digital resume. So it means that you are familiar with the computer, you are familiar with the digital world, right? So that will prove yourself to be a tech savvy in front of the employer. You get your skills endorsed by your colleagues, professors, guides, mentors, and friends. So there is an option of endorsing skills. because you have written that you know this many things, right? You know these softwares, right? But if it is endorsed by your mentors, if it is endorsed by your guides, if it is endorsed by your professors, if it is endorsed by the friends, there is an option in LinkedIn to endorse the skills of the others, right? So let's say if you have written that I know these skills, right? And if it is endorsed by your mentors, your guides, your professors, right? And this creates an extra impact that someone has recommended you for that particular skill. Clear? So we are not marketing ourselves. Other people are believing that this people or this person has this much of skill by endorsing them. So this is another advantage of having the good LinkedIn profile. And of course, compared to the physical resume where you have the specific format, you have the specific number of pages, you cannot create more than 2 pages like this, right? So these all limitations are basically washed away in if you are switching to a digital resume, right? So these are the certain suggestions from my side, along with, because everything starts with the resume only, right? Without resume, no one can hire you, right? So even though you are a skilled, even though you are knowledgeable, but if you do not have the effective resume, right, people will not taste you, people will not call for your interview. So that is why the first step is effective resume and communication that occurs before the interview process, right? And that is why I have included one slide on this effective resume as well as LinkedIn profile. So if you have a good effective resume, if you have a knowledge of the subjects which you have studied, if you have a personally the qualities which I have just mentioned under the personality development, and you have the along with the subject knowledge, you also have some technical or practical skills like a basic computer, then you know the one programming language, you know one CAD software, meshing software, analysis software, you know some hard skills like how to operate the lathe machine or some sheet metaling things, right? Then this will make a perfect package for a fresher to get selected easily for the and makes yourself a good choice for the employer. So thank you. If you have any questions related to it, I am open for it.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing such a valuable knowledge and time on the said topic. Students will definitely be benefited from your motivational talk, sir. So thank you very much for sparing your valuable time. And I would like to appreciate you with appreciation certificate on behalf of Pali University, sir. So I request you to please stop sharing your screen so that I can share the certificate, sir.
Yes.
Okay, I hope the screen is visible, sir.
Yes.
Okay, sir. So thank you very much for sharing,
Thank
imparting
you so
your
much. The whole aeronautical engineering department of PIET Diploma Studies, HOD Ankit sir, Colonel sir, and other faculties. Thank you so much for providing me an opportunity to interact with the students. I hope this will benefit your students in future. Thank you.
We are grateful for your precious time and deep enlightenment, sir. Thank you very
Thank,
much.
thank you, sir.